Hello. Today I went for the conscious parenting program where they talked about breaking generational cycles, how to empower parents. And I had a bit of reflection, after the program. I've just been reflecting, and there were so many things I learned from today's program, and I would like to share some of them. One of the most profound things that I learned is that trauma is no respecter of race or where you come from. We have people from several backgrounds in that room. Coming from different countries or nationalities or race, if you would like to call it that. But when the host, and she was teaching and got on the subject of trauma, that is childhood trauma, you could literally see grown men and women break down and in tears, because she was teaching and she was using like different examples, different scenarios, of things that happen in childhood, how parents treat children, the kind of words you use and things like that, and you could see them crying and breaking down, because I could tell it's like you're replaying their childhood. They were seeing themselves in those stories, and it just made me realize that regardless of the background, regardless of where you come from, what was common was how the parents were parenting, how what we call discipline in quote, the language, the lack of connection. If that happens regardless of the background, the effects are the same. Another thing that I realized is what happens in childhood does not stay in childhood. What happens in childhood, because these are grown people, some are even grandparents, but replaying things that happened in their childhood, it was like they were reliving that traumatic experience again. And of course, you can go on a healing journey and deal with those things. But of course, these are people who have not healed. So that's why I said, what happens doesn't stay in childhood. It happens in childhood. It does not stay in childhood. So if you don't deal with it, if you don't heal, it will always come into play. And of course, it's impacting on their parenting journey. So it was such a profound thing. Even when the speaker got onto talking about importance of love languages, discipline and connection rather than punishment, I was grateful as someone who has been on a journey of being an intentional parent for a few years. Of course, I didn't start my parenting journey that way, but I'm grateful that, of course, the past few years I've been on a journey to being an intentional parent. So when she was mentioning certain things or that parents say to their children, certain kind of environments that parents are creating that are toxic, or that are not appropriate and that can cause traumatic experiences to children, I was grateful to know that right now my children can relate to those things. Right now, I couldn't relate to being that kind of parent, using those kind of words, or the kind of parent who is bringing punishment, to get my children to do certain things, or even when they do things that are wrong. I was grateful that, I understand what discipline is, and I've actually been on the right path. Of course, we all have blind spots, and it's not a concept of trying to be perfect, okay? We all continue to learn, unlearn, and relearn, which is why I went. And like I said, we all have blind spots. But I was grateful that, there are certain things I cannot relate with. There may be certain things I'm getting better at, but there are lots of things that I can't relate with. I can't relate with punishing my children. I cannot relate with cursing or using inappropriate words at them, hitting, yelling. I've left that group. I've empowered with more skills that I know how to handle, when my children even do things that are wrong. When they trigger me, I know how to respond rather than react. But I thought to share so that parents will realize that, it was really profound as someone who comes from an African heritage, to meet other people who come from a different background, but still have the same impact that trauma could have. I could see it literally. And it's just, parenting is a big deal. Parenting shapes your future, shapes who you become. And trauma is not something you joke with. And for me, further emphasize the importance that whatever form of discipline that you want to put in place, your discipline should not scar your children. So even if it's better to be permissive rather than scar your children because in coach you want to, in what you call discipline, because that's not even discipline. Because ideally, discipline shouldn't scar. So anything you're doing that's going to scar, whether physical scar or emotional scar, because people think scarring is just hitting the child. No. Now we're talking about emotional scar, which is even deeper. So any form of discipline that you're doing that is scarring is not discipline. So rather, you need to learn how to get the results you want without leaving the scar. Because you can get the child to do what you want, or you get the outcome you want. But once he leaves his scar, it becomes a problem, because those scars never go away. And they go on to impact their future. And even when they now become parents, you have a reflection of that trauma in your parenting and on to your own children eventually. So it's just amazing to see that really you can be intentional and you can walk a different journey. Also, if you've had you have been raised and you have trauma, emotional trauma now, and you have scars, you need to heal. Because if you don't heal, like my coach Wendy Oluge will say, if you don't heal from your trauma, you will bleed on those who didn't cut you. And your children didn't cut you. They're not the ones responsible for that trauma. But you find yourself bleeding on those children. You find yourself those traumatic experiences or triggers being impacted on your children. You see your children reflecting your trauma back to you. And if you don't heal, you will not be able to be the parent that you really want to be. So you can have those intentions. I want to raise amazing children. I want to do this and do that. It's just going to be talk. Because the tools to do that, you won't be able to deliver on that wish if you don't heal from your trauma. So I just thought to share my reflections from today's day's training, or what I call it, program that I went for, and some of the profound things that that I learned. So thank you for listening. Bye.